Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and greetings from Kennedy Airport. I'm flying to Seattle today, and I've got a seat on the left-hand side of my Boeing 757 because we'll be flying the DEEZE departure today. In typical Peter Masella fashion, I arrived at the gate way too early for my flight to Seattle, but that afforded me a good deal of time in the Delta Sky Club, where I was delighted to see my favorite pastries, sfogliatelle. I've only seen this at the airport in Naples, Italy, and happily, now here at JFK. And from up here above the B concourse, I've got some commanding views of the ramp, including the Boeing 757-200 that I'll be taking to Seattle today. Who doesn't love the 757? Speaking of the 757, don't forget to check out the video I posted on July 13th where I flew on a 757-300, the stretched version of the 757. Back up here, I can see runway 31 left arrivals to JFK. It's early in the morning, and typically runway 31 right is used for landing, but there's not much traffic at this hour, so 31 left is being used. It's also being used as the departure runway this morning. Departures off of runway 31 left turn left after takeoff in a standard noise abatement climb, roughly following the Belt Parkway out towards the ocean. This climb, however, is not a preview of what our climb will be today. By the time we take off, there's going to be a runway change because the wind is going to shift to coming from the east, so we'll be using the same runway, but in the opposite direction. That would be runway 13 right. Let's leave JFK for Seattle. I love the openness of this boarding gate here at JFK, especially when boarding an airplane as beautiful as the 757. 757, here I come. I've flown in the Delta 1 cabin on the Delta 757 before, but this time I'm in the main cabin, specifically the exit row. And it's not just an exit row with a window that opens up, it's a full door, so I have unlimited legroom. What I like about this seat is that I can get up freely at any time without disturbing anyone. In the Delta 1 cabin, if you have a window seat, you're coupled up with the person next to you, and when that person makes their seat into a bed, it's kind of difficult to get up. And of course, in Delta 1, you don't get any view of the wing at all, so I'll have a lot of wing action views back here. Always something different on my channel. As I was boarding this plane, the wind shifted and runway 13 right became the departure runway. So as we pushed back from the gate, I knew that we would have a really long taxi to the runway under the control of Kennedy Ground Control. The push back onto the ramp was quick and efficient with plenty of room for the tug to push us back onto the wide ramp area. Once in the final pushback position, we started our engines, checked the flaps, and began the long taxi to runway 13 right. The runway is 14,511 feet long, and taxiways Bravo and Papa will take us there. There was hardly any traffic in front of us, so despite the long distance, we got to the beginning of the runway in no time. The ground controller handed us off to the local controller, and we were instantly cleared for takeoff. This 757 is an awesome plane to fly on. This particular aircraft's tail number is November 717 Tango Whiskey, and it's actually not the first time I've flown on this airplane. Notice the TW in the tail number. TW stands for TWA, or Trans World Airlines, the airline that this aircraft was delivered to in 1999. Eventually, the aircraft flew for American Airlines after the demise of TWA, and since 2008, it's been flying for Delta. During its time with Delta, this plane was once painted in SkyTeam colors. Why did it return to Delta colors? I have no idea. Just over 1,000 757s were built between 1981 and 2004. 2 Pratt & Whitney PW2037 engines mounted under the wings power this aircraft. If you watch my channel often, you know that seat selection is very important to me. Yes, I am happy that I'm in the exit row with a whole lot of legroom, but what I value even more than the extra inches is the view out the window, which is why I selected a seat on the left side of this airplane. Why? Well, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that we would be flying the DEEZE departure today. The DEEZE departure, or specifically the DEEZE 5 departure, calls for a left turn to the north and northwest after takeoff. This means that the view from the left side of the airplane will feature the airport we just took off from, as well as great views of Manhattan and the other boroughs of New York City as we climb out over Nassau County and Westchester County. DEEZE is our initial departure fix, our gateway out of the New York City area, and it's located over Thornwood, New York, not too far from Westchester County Airport. So basically, after takeoff on runway 13 right, which heads southeast, we'll be making a series of left-hand turns to get to the north of the airport over Thornwood, New York, before we begin the en route phase of our transcontinental flight this morning to Seattle, Washington. I love looking back on this climb out so I can see the airport. This is the parallel runway, runway 13 left, and if you look carefully, you can see an aircraft on its landing roll. This aircraft previously flew a curved approach to the runway in the opposite direction that we saw the 31 left departures in earlier this morning. We're under the control of the New York TRACON, which is located in the same county we're flying over now, Nassau County. The turns to the left we are making are issued by the departure controller and keep us away from the close-in, heavy action from New York City's JFK and LaGuardia airports. Our turns to the left bring us closer to DEEZE in a series of wide turns circumnavigating the city. These turns still afford me a view of Kennedy Airport as the next departing flight makes its takeoff roll behind us on runway 13 right. And then there's the view of Manhattan with its new super tall skyscrapers combined with its iconic skyline. Manhattan is very close to LaGuardia Airport, which is the airport that provides even closer views to the city, and as I pan the camera to the right, you can see LaGuardia with its two much smaller runways. We need to continue to the northeast for a short while before the departure controller issues us another turn to the left. In the distance is Long Island Sound, the body of water separating Nassau County on Long Island with Westchester County and Connecticut. We will need to pass over the Long Island Sound on our way to DEEZE. Yes, Seattle is to the west, and we just made our way to the east, but it's necessary for us to do so to avoid all of the air traffic in the area. I'm not complaining because this is a wide departure. As we turn to the left again, we can see all of New York City, but it's in the distance. New York City will be in the view for quite a while as we continue along. This is a grand departure procedure out of New York City. If you're going to be headed to the northwest, I always suggest sitting on the left-hand side of the plane when departing JFK. Again, I can still see the airport behind us, and I especially like this view. Manhattan, LaGuardia Airport, and the Whitestone and Throgs Neck bridges which connect Queens and the Bronx. We're now ready to fly over the Long Island Sound. Seattle is also located on a sound, the Puget Sound, but sitting on the left side of the airplane won't allow me to see the Puget Sound today, so I'm enjoying this sound view. After all, there aren't many sounds in the world. And speaking of sound, let's listen in for a moment to the sound of this 757 as we climb to 17,000 feet. As we head directly to DEEZE over Thornwood, New York, our climb is restricted to 17,000 feet for the moment. Above us is airspace reserved for other traffic, and the airspace that we're looking at below us is reserved for LaGuardia traffic. We've gone so far to the east that we don't even interfere with traffic departing LaGuardia. And of course, just beyond LaGuardia, I still have that wonderful view of Manhattan. The visibility today is great, and from this vantage point, we have a very unique angle for viewing the island of Manhattan. From up here, we can see how Manhattan is separated from the Bronx, which is the only borough on the mainland USA. And that beautiful river, that's the Hudson River. As this 757 continues its climb to cruising altitude, we began to talk to air traffic controllers in the air route traffic control centers throughout the continental United States. And we sure are going across the entire North American continent today. The 757-200 has a range of 3,370 miles. That's about 1,000 miles beyond the route we're flying today. So this airplane has more than enough range to get from a state on the Atlantic to a state on the Pacific. This aircraft type is even used on some transatlantic routes. What a plane! I'm going to skip the en route phase of flight and go directly over to our approach and landing at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The weather coming into Seattle was kind of what you'd expect, cloudy and rainy, so I wasn't really able to see that much until we were closer to the ground. We approached the city of Seattle from the northeast on the standard arrival procedure and made a series of left-hand turns so that our majestic 757 can join the final approach course to runway 16 right. As we descend, I'm enjoying looking at the left wing and the various flap settings as we slow down, descend, and turn to get to our destination. Because of the clouds, before I knew it, we were lined up on runway 16 right and all configured to land. If I were to have sat on the right side of the airplane, I would have had a view of downtown Seattle, providing that there were breaks in the clouds. I've got a whole video about that view entitled Super Seattle Airport Approach. You'll get some great views of downtown there, but for today, we're on the left side of the airplane looking east. This means that we'll get a fantastic view of the King County International Airport, also known as Boeing Field. Boeing has a facility at this airport, and it's here where final preparation of aircraft prior to delivery is made. The Museum of Flight is also located here, along with cargo carriers, one passenger airline, Kenmore Air, which offers flights on small aircraft. Isn't that an interesting sight to see just before landing at a major international airport? Every time I fly over this airport, I can't get over how many airplanes are on the ground there before they're delivered to airlines all over the world. Boeing Field is only 4.8 nautical miles north of the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. We're now clear of Boeing Field, and we're clear to land on runway 16 right, one of 3 parallel runways at the Seattle Airport. Our 757 is fully configured to land as I gaze out the window and look at the pine trees, which are characteristic of the Pacific Northwest. It's quite a change from New York City, and our 757-200 here got us in style. Let's land. All right, well, I'm here on the ground in Seattle. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed my great departure out of JFK and my arrival to Seattle today. If you like these videos, don't forget to please consider subscribing to my channel so that you get alerted as to every time I post new videos for you. Thanks, everybody, and see you really soon.